She was going to win it. All-Star MVP off the bench. During the 2001 WNBA All-Star pregame, when all of the starters were being introduced and celebrated, Lisa Leslie stood to the side. She plotted how she was going to exploit every minute she was given off the bench to achieve her objective. Leslie had no problems with being motivated. She always set goals and did whatever it took to accomplish them. She also hated losing. Her competitive spirit was unmatched. A formative experience in her basketball journey was in her sophomore year at Morningside High School near Los Angeles. The Lady Monarchs were playing for the state championship in Oakland, and they were down by 1 with just a few seconds to go in the game. The coach drew up a play for Lisa to take the final shot. Her teammate inbounded the ball to her. She spun and had a good look at the basket. She let the ball go, but it had no chance. She said as she took the shot, she couldn't decide whether to bank it off the glass or go for the swish. The opposing team celebrated their win, and Lisa and her team cried the whole way home back to LA. She felt so sick to her stomach that before she fell asleep that night, she wrote down her goal to win the state championship the next year. And she was so locked in the following year. She averaged 25 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 blocks per game in her junior year. She was voted to be an All-Star reserve, along with her teammate and first-time All-Star, Tamika Dixon. The Leslie-led Sparks were having a strong season, with a record of 17-3, being 8-0 at home in their first season at their new arena, Staples Center. Leslie was also one of the leading candidates for MVP that year, so you had to wonder how could she not be a starter? Something was going on. 1999 WNBA MVP Yolanda Griffith of the Sacramento Monarchs started ahead of her. Sacramento had 3 of its players starting for the West that year, and a lot of people say that they stuffed the ballots. Their organization made sure all of their fans had the chance to vote for their players, and maybe more than once. LA received a lot of criticism for not providing their fans with enough opportunities to vote for their players for the All-Star game in 2001. So the only way the Sparks ended up having 2 of their players in the game was because the coaches, players, and media voted them in. The game tipped off, and Lisa Leslie, arguably the best player in the league, was watching from the bench. Her friend, Tracy McGrady, playing for the Orlando Magic at the time, was sitting courtside. He told her, "Lisa, when you get in there, ball." Eventually, Leslie was subbed into the game with 14 minutes, 43 seconds left in the first half, the West holding on to a 2-point lead. And then she went to work. Teresa Weatherspoon from the New York Liberty started talking trash. She was sick of the East always losing to the West. Lisa started establishing position in the paint and scored her first points. Down to the other side of the court, Tari Phillips of the New York Liberty posted up on Leslie. She planted her pivot foot, jab stepped through to what probably seemed to her an open look. Only you didn't get many open looks when Lisa Leslie guarded you. She floated the ball up, and just as the ball left her fingertips, Leslie swatted it out of bounds. Lisa was just getting started. The West got another stop, and Leslie got the ball around the 3-point line. She drove hard to the basket, but left it a little short. She fought for position, however, and got the rebound and cashed in. Tina Thompson from the dynastic Houston Comets and former teammate at USC was loving it and cheering her on. Lisa had a great handle, unmatched footwork, and displayed stifling defense. Her ability to finish around the rim even through contact, as well as stretch the floor and knock down three-pointers, displayed how deep her bag was. And she wasn't holding back tonight in Orlando. In 11 minutes, she had 12 points, and at halftime, the West had a 10-point lead. Fran Harris, reporting sideline for the game, talked with her courtside as the second half was beginning. She asked Lisa if she had any revenge on her mind for not being voted in as a starter. She replied, "No, I was just focused. And I set a goal for myself, and that was to win MVP off the bench." The second half, the West pulled ahead even further and controlled the rest of the game, nearly leading by 20 points a few different times. No one even scored close to Leslie's 20 points, except for one player, Yolanda Griffith from the Monarchs. The game ended, and the score was 80-72 for the West. Leslie won All-Star MVP by a landslide. She scored 20 points with 9 rebounds and 3 blocks, even though she barely played half the game minutes-wise. Coach Van Chancellor for the West said after the game, "See, you went and pissed Leslie off. So she came down here and got the MVP. She was on a mission." WNBA Commissioner Val Ackerman presented her with the award, and she held it up while the arena erupted. Witnessing greatness is rare, and that night in Orlando, the fans were given a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The Sparks would go on a 10-game win streak after the All-Star break, leading into a riveting postseason. Lisa Leslie was on a tear in 2001. Welcome to Fire and White. Here we ignite stories about legends of women's basketball. You are going to choose today. You can either play basketball or get your hair done, but you cannot do both. Which is it going to be? Her Aunt Judy Caro, who she called Aunt JC, said to her after coming home all sweaty after just getting her hair done earlier. Without any uncertainty, Lisa said, "I want to play basketball." "All right, put your hair in a ponytail and go play basketball." Lisa said it was important for her to be feminine, and while her mother was away from home and on the road most of the time, she learned from her Aunt JC. But on that day, she decided basketball would be her top priority. She could play all day and all night long if she could. Her cousin Craigie, a few years older than her, would bring her with him before school, after school, and whenever they could meet up to play. This is when she found her passion for the game, and it's where she developed her incredible work ethic. She and Craigie usually played at Victoria Park in Los Angeles County, and that's where in 1986, Lisa was selected to play for the Olympic Girls Development League. In those teenage years, she explains the metamorphosis she went through as a player, and that summer, she sprouted up to 6'4". She started playing with the 14 and under, 16 and under, and 18 and under leagues, and sometimes she said she would play all of them on the same day. She played against older girls, notably the Jordan twins, Paula and Janine, the best at their age group in the country, who would receive scholarships to play at UNLV. Lisa said she wasn't on their level with talent and experience, but she was competitive. Playing against them made her better defensively, as well as build her confidence. Another plus playing against what she called the big girls was that she learned she could score as well. She could lure them away from the basket to hit jumpers and eventually drive to the basket and finish. She was such a threat because she could handle the ball and finish with both hands. In fact, When Lisa started playing basketball a couple years prior at 12 years old, she primarily played as a lefty. She only tried basketball because a popular girl in school asked her to play with them. Lisa wanted to fit in, but basketball was something completely new to her. When she was in the layup lines, she found herself alone in the left-handed group. So from then on, she learned to use her right hand, and she never looked back. Lisa was going into high school, and she was already receiving tons of letters from universities about basketball scholarships. Those universities included USC, Stanford, Tennessee, Notre Dame, and Harvard. As she started playing basketball at Morningside High, her coach Frank Scott worked with her relentlessly. He had her shoot 500 shots per day, work over and over with her going right, then left, and at most practices, the team would line up and take turns driving straight at her. It all paid off too. Lisa helped the team get a 27-3 record that year, and she was named California Freshman of the Year. After missing the buzzer beater the year before to win the state title, Lisa and the Lady Monarchs found themselves in Oakland again, fighting for another chance to win the California State Championship. They won 60-50, and her confidence, self-esteem, and her belief in herself soared to an all-time high. And soon after, she was invited to the USA Basketball's Junior World Championship team. She was the only high school player there, and ended up leading the team in points and rebounds. Her roommate, who ended up being her best basketball friend, was a tough and edgy player with a lot of passion and heart from North Philadelphia. Her name was Dawn Staley. The team disappointingly finished in 7th place, and it would be the only time where Lisa and Dawn teamed up and did not win gold together. It was the last game of her senior season at Morningside High, and there was a tradition for the team's best senior to try to break the school's scoring record. The record was held by the top senior the season before with 69 points. "Let's go for it," Coach said. "Get the ball to Lisa." By the end of the first quarter, she had already scored 49 points. The game plan was going extremely well for the Lady Monarchs, with the team starting with a stifling full-court press. Lisa would wait at half court every possession, and when the other team scored or they got a rebound, they'd launch it to her and she would attack the basket. Lisa scored 52 more points in the second quarter, and by halftime she had 101 points. The score was 102-24. Remember, high school quarters are only 8 minutes, so she did this all in just 16 minutes. She had already eviscerated the school's record, and then their sights were set on beating Cheryl Miller's 105-point game record. Coach Scott told her to quickly beat the record, and then he would pull her out. Enough was enough. As the Lady Monarchs were heading out of the locker room to start the second half, their opponents were packing up and leaving. They decided they would take the forfeit. Can you blame them? Lisa had to settle for not breaking the record, but still felt proud of herself for being the only player to score 101 points in a single half. After the game, she became so popular, she did 23 radio interviews. Some asked her if she thought it was bad sportsmanship to score that many points. She responded that they broke no rules and that they just played the game of basketball. It was no secret that she was getting the ball every possession. They asked if she would do it again, and she said she would. They would go on to win the state championship again, despite Lisa having the chickenpox and not remembering the game at all. Lisa entered USC as the top recruit in the nation. There were posters of her dunking the basketball with the caption reading, "When will she dunk?" Her coach, Marianne Stanley, was exactly who she needed and would prove pivotal in raising the bar on her game in an exponential way. She was passionate, intense, and believed in discipline. In her first game, she scored 30 points and pulled down 20 rebounds to beat Texas, and the team would eventually go 18-12 for the season. Lisa led the nation, averaging 19 points and 10 rebounds as a freshman, and was NCAA Freshman of the Year. The next couple of years under Coach Stanley at USC, Lisa and the women of Troy kept getting better and better, year by year, and practice by practice. She averaged 20 points and 8 rebounds her sophomore year, and 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks in her junior year. Both years they lost in the tournament, and both years they lost to the eventual champs in Stanford and Texas Tech. Coming into her senior year, and fresh off of a very successful USA Basketball World Championship gold medal win in Brazil that year, as well as winning USA Basketball's 1993 Female Athlete of the Year, Lisa was ready to put it all together in college basketball. She was ready to win a championship. Only there was a problem. Coach Stanley was not going to be coach. She was leaving. Coach Stanley had asked for a new multi-year contract and compensation equaling that to the men's basketball coach, George Raveling. USC would not give her equal pay because, according to them, Coach Raveling had more experience. When Coach Stanley filed an equal pay lawsuit in 1993, the court ruled against her and held that USC was entitled to pay Coach Raveling more. According to Lisa, Coach left because staying to her felt like abandoning her values and doing a disservice to herself and her gender. The team was heartbroken. They really felt this year was going to be their year. But without their captain, there was a lot of uncertainty how the season would turn out. USC didn't waste a lot of time. Former USC great Cheryl Miller was hired as head coach, and posters started being put up around campus with Lisa and Cheryl. Lisa was not so thrilled. But after working hard and making the best of their situation, the women of Troy got to work. They finished conference play with a 14-4 record and won the Pac-10 championship. They entered the tournament that year as a 2 seed, but only advanced to the Elite Eight, losing to Louisiana Tech. Lisa that year averaged 22 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. She finished her collegiate career as the Pac-10's all-time leading scorer and was the only player to be named an All-Pac-10 player 4 times. She also finally won the Naismith Award. As the year for her brought many awards, there was one special award that she made a goal to accomplish, and that was to be named to the Kodak All-America team. In 1994, she was named to that squad. We're not going to get any breaks, and I don't want them anyway. That was Tara Vanderveer, head coach of Stanford women's basketball and coach of the U.S. women's Olympic basketball team in 1996. Lisa and Don reminisced about those playing days together and explained that Coach Vanderveer's viewpoint was this. If practice was, say, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., Don Staley said, and then practice the next day was from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., because you had more than 24 hours off, that was considered a day off. Tara understood team dynamics, and she understood the game completely. She is the best coach I have ever played for, Lisa said. A lot hinged on this 1996 team and the future of women's professional sports in this country. Many players in the 70s, 80s, and 90s would be done after college with no real opportunity to play professionally, other than the Olympics, if you were good enough to be one of 12 players to be selected, or traveled overseas, far away from home to play. The stakes were high, but it was about time. This team was going to show the world to the US, there needed to be a major professional league of women's basketball. There was a couple of special players on this team that Lisa often talks about being great pioneers for the women's game. Katrina McClain, who she said was the best player she's ever played against or with, and 4-time gold medalist and highly decorated world basketball athlete, Teresa Edwards. The team was selected in May of 1995, so this group had been together for over a year already and had gone 52-0. They traveled throughout the country to Russia, Ukraine, China, Australia, and Canada. During the Olympics, the US women beat their opponents by an average of 28.6 points. And in the gold medal game, they faced who Leslie said was their biggest rival, Brazil. Lisa and the US basketball team had a little bit of history with Brazil. In 1993, before she even turned 20 years old, was the team's leading scorer in the World Championship qualifier tournament in Sao Paulo. The US women lost to Brazil earlier in the tournament, but found themselves in a rematch with them in the championship. Lisa scored 20 points in the first half, but the game remained close until the end, with the US finishing with a win in overtime, 99-92. After the game, they headed straight out to the bus to catch their flight home. But the Brazilian fans didn't seem too happy, and they followed them out to the bus and started rocking it. The players were instructed to get down. Luckily, the police showed up and helped clear the way for them to get home safe. Both teams had gone undefeated throughout the Olympics, and Lisa said that there was no way they were letting Brazil take this away from them. They remained focused and disciplined. They came out aggressive and hungry for the win, and ran away with it. The score 111-87. Lisa scored 29 points, and many of her teammates scored in double digits. She said after the game, "I just knew that I wanted to win and be able to have my teammates count on me." The reporter then asked, "Is this the greatest game of your career?" And Lisa replied, "I think it's the best game I've ever played and the best moment of my life." Nearly 25 years earlier, Title IX prohibited discrimination based on gender in any educational program or activity that received federal funding. The impact was huge for collegiate women, providing equal opportunities for admissions, educational programs, and athletics. 1996 marked an important year in women's basketball history. Sue Bird said of the '96 team that it started women's basketball in this country professionally, and it gave it the notoriety it deserved, putting it on the map. Lisa Leslie also pursued a modeling career in New York City in 1996. Breaking in, however, as with everything, even with Lisa Leslie, was difficult. She went through many ups and downs, met some good people and some sketchy people. She eventually signed with Wilhelmina Models, Inc. in the Big Apple, as well as signing an agent, Bruce Binko. Work as a model for her started to really pick up, and she was busy. She posed for Sports Illustrated, TV Guide, Elle, Shape, and appeared on billboards in Los Angeles. Lisa made a decision. Her future was to be a celebrity model, not a basketball player. She was done with the game. The game, as it appeared, was not done with her, though. And the country was still buzzing for more women's basketball after their domination in Atlanta at the Olympics. In fact, in January 1997, her agent mentioned an opportunity to play in a summer league the NBA was sponsoring. She had played in summer leagues all the time, and with the ability to still model in New York, she was on board. It was going to be called the WNBA, and Cheryl Swoops and Rebecca Lobo had already signed on. Lisa signed what she called a personal service contract with the WNBA, and she was in. They assigned Swoops to the Houston Comets, Lobo to the New York Liberty, and Leslie to the Los Angeles Sparks. The Sparks were going to play at the Forum in Inglewood, where those Showtime Lakers of the 80s dominated. The Liberty were also going to play at a historic place, Madison Square Garden. This showed Lisa that this was no mere summer league. This was for real. The marketing campaign launching the WNBA was given the slogan, "We Got Next," and Lisa starred in a commercial made by Spike Lee. Nike launched the L9s, Lisa's signature shoe, and the inaugural season tipped off in the Forum in June of 1997. Lisa talks about how she was not in shape, however. Her modeling career was going so well, and she might have underestimated her readiness for the high-level competition that awaited her. She led the Sparks in scoring, however, with 16 points and 14 rebounds in a loss, 67-57. And the Sparks would keep losing. They would go 5-8 before the Sparks fired head coach Linda Sharp, and the coaching carousel would begin turning. Lisa felt embarrassed in the inaugural season. She felt she needed to be the star, but she believed she didn't perform as such. Even though she averaged 16 points and 7 rebounds, the Sparks finished the season 14-14 and missed the playoffs. The Sparks in 1998 improved very little. After going 7-13, the Sparks fired Julie Rousseau and hired Orlando Woolridge as head coach. They finished 5-5 and another year out of the playoffs. 1999 was a big year of progress for the WNBA. They added more teams, the Minnesota Lynx and the Orlando Miracle. The competing professional women's league, the American Basketball League, faded away, which meant there was a flood of great talent headed to the WNBA. The Sparks added a few players, and their record leading into the first ever All-Star break was 10-5. The game was going to be played at Madison Square Garden. The West dominated the paint and took the game by 18 points. Lisa won the All-Star MVP award, and she then focused all of her attention on finishing the season and going to the playoffs. She led the Sparks to their best record in its short history at 20-12. They were headed to the playoffs and advanced to the Western Conference Finals. Unfortunately, it was going to be against the reigning dynasty in Houston, the Comets led by Cynthia Cooper, reigning MVP. The Sparks clashed with the Comets for Game 3 of the 1999 Western Conference Finals. They split the first 2 games, and the winner of this game would move on to the finals. The Sparks rolled up to the summit in Houston and were ready to get the best of the Comets, whom they developed a bitter rivalry with since the beginning of the WNBA. But they were 0-7 all-time at Houston. Leslie led the Sparks in this series with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and a block per game, while Cooper led the Comets with 19 points, 9 assists, and 2 blocks per game. When the ABL was extinct, the league held a special draft, and the Sparks picked Alicia Milton. Leslie and Milton grew to be great teammates and would help each other on the court. Milton had a few nicknames: Sunshine, D Nasty, and sometimes just D. When D Nasty would show herself around the court, it was Lisa's job to help calm her down. Both of them were religious, and they both took comfort in reminding each other of their beliefs in those tough moments. "Come on, you gotta be strong. Get with it," Leslie would say. One of those was a gesture one or both would do to help in particular hard times that had significant religious meaning to them. They would salute each other. This helped them develop a special bond. As the game started to wind down, however, and after a long, grueling season, the Comets began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. According to Lisa, forward Tina Thompson started talking trash. Despite all the chirping she was doing, the Sparks could not rally. Lisa said what really sent her over the edge, however, was when Tina started mock saluting. This really got to her. After the Comets scored, Tina was backpedaling to get back on defense and kept jawing at Lisa. And Lisa said she just kept taunting her. "I had to hit her," Lisa said. When she caught up with Tina on the other side of the court, Lisa double forearm shoved her in the throat. Leslie and Thompson were ejected, and the Comets prevailed 72-62. Leslie was done for the season, while Tina and the Comets would go on to win their third straight WNBA title. "That's okay, Smooth. You probably couldn't have accomplished that anyway," Coach Cooper would tell Lisa. He knew what to do to press her buttons to get the best out of her. He also gave her the nickname Smooth, saying her game reminded him of his old teammate, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The 2000 season for the Sparks saw another coaching change, hiring former Defensive Player of the Year and 5-time NBA champion with the Showtime Lakers, Michael Cooper. "This is what you need to do." "She is really good, isn't she?" he prodded further. Lisa was going into her 4th year in the WNBA, and it was about time she and the Sparks started winning. With Coach Cooper coming in, it was clear that they were all there to win a championship, and anything less would be unacceptable. The Sparks had their best defensive year of its history, holding their opponents to an average of 68 points per game. They finished with a record of 28-4, but got bounced out in the Western Conference Finals by the Houston Comets again, their arch nemesis. The Comets would go on to win the finals again for a 4th straight year. The Sparks, however, in Lisa's mind, were moving in a good direction. They were going to have their time soon. "Get off me," Lauren Jackson said throughout the game, according to Lisa. "Don't get involved, Lisa, just play." Dawn Staley, always the leader and level head, told her teammate during the gold medal game in Sydney, Australia for the 2000 Olympics. Lisa was coming off of a killer semifinals game against Japan, scoring 35 points, a U.S. record in an Olympic game up until 2012, when Carmelo Anthony scored 37 against Nigeria. The final game, the U.S. was matched up against the home team. The women's team was ever dominant and breezed straight to the final game. But the Aussies were also undefeated and were determined to win the game by any means possible. Teresa Edwards, Nikki McCrae, Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, and Yolanda Griffith started for the United States. And Sandy Brondello, Christy Harrower, Lauren Jackson, Jenny Whittle, and Carla Boyd started for the Aussies. Cheryl Swoops was on fire to start the game, scoring the first 6 points. Then it was Lisa's turn. She scored the next 2 off of dimes from Teresa Edwards. The story for the Australians was the excellence of Christy Harrower and Lauren Jackson. They really kept Australia in the game. Whenever the US would begin to put them into a large deficit, those two would will the team back into the game. The next possession, Swoops stole the ball and passed it to Edwards to bring it down the court. The ball moved from player to player, then they ran a slip screen with Leslie flying toward the basket. A whistle blew, but it wasn't clear what the call was. As Lisa began her way down the court, it seemed Lauren Jackson had said something that got her attention. Lisa turned back and the two exchanged what could only be imagined as some competitive pleasantries. Both Leslie and Jackson showed up, and both teams kept feeding them the ball. It was a battle of titans of women's basketball. But the US was way too deep with talent, and there was really no way that they would lose the game. Outside of the starters showing up, Natalie Williams came in and played some serious minutes, crashing the boards, hitting buckets, and bringing in the intensity and toughness to keep the game out of reach for Australia. The US lead rose to 12 after Lisa put on a smooth spin move, got fouled by Carla Boyd, and hit the and one. At halftime, the score was 43-30 for the US. Christy Harrower got injured in the second half, and it never looked good for Australia for the rest of the game. Things started getting chippy, and Michelle Timms and Yolanda Griffith got tangled up and fell to the ground. One of the best highlights of the game was when Teresa Edwards threw a cross-court, no-look pass to Lisa on the opposite elbow and fired up a contested jump shot. She was able to rise above her defender and found the bottom of the net. Later in the game, Edwards got the ball after a good show of defense and made one of the greatest passes I have ever seen to Nikki McRae down the court to hit another easy lay-in. The lead was now 19 points. The game wasn't all just about the US winning the gold, however. With about 5 minutes to go in the game, a controversy took place. Lisa got the ball down low, defended by Jackson. She missed the turnaround jumper, but Yolanda Griffith got the rebound as all struggled for the ball and got a shot up. They all tried to box each other out, and it appeared that Jackson yanked off Lisa's ponytail. When asked after the game about the incident, Lisa said, "I know in my heart that Lauren pulled my hair on purpose. She can have the hair. I congratulate her on winning the silver medal. But I got the gold." You watch it and come to your own conclusion on what happened. Griffith eventually got the ball in the basket, and Lisa bent over to pick up her ponytail, then threw it to the sideline. Lisa took the high road on this one and just focused on getting through the rest of the game. She admits she wasn't as effective down the stretch because so much of her energy was being used to control herself and not sock Lauren in the face. But given her experience with losing her cool during competitions, she did well and was able to keep herself calm. A few possessions later, Jackson got the ball down the court and was fouled by Lisa. There were no longer going to be any easy baskets. The US clutched onto their lead. Dawn Staley dribbled out the clock, got fouled, and sank both free throws to lift the score to 76, finishing the game 76-54. Lisa led the Olympics with 19.5 points per game, helping the US women's basketball team win back-to-back gold medals. There was still a job to do in the States, however. The Sparks made some off-season moves for the 2001 season. Forward Latasha Beers and center Rhonda Mapp were acquired through a trade. Leslie had plenty of experience playing against the two. Beers and Mapp talked a lot of trash and played really tough. Both were a problem, but now as important assets for the Sparks, Leslie welcomed her new teammates. Lisa wanted to trust her new teammates and try to be more open. She said that she knew she was missing out on rewarding relationships. She's had trust issues ever since her own sister Dion stole her identity and destroyed her credit by using her social security card, writing checks in her name, and draining her bank account. She was crushed that her own sister would do this to her, but it wasn't like they ever had a great relationship. Her sister Dion would torture and terrorize Lisa as a kid. She would even steal all of the money she earned by taking care of neighbors' lawns. Lisa said she was not one to hold grudges and forgave as deeply as she could, but she said these incidents still affect her today. She was committed to making it work this year with the Sparks with her once bitter opponents. The Sparks finished with the league's best record, 28-4 in 2001, and headed into the first round of the playoffs against their arch nemesis, the Houston Comets. The Comets looked a little different, however, from their dynastic past. Cynthia Cooper, two-time MVP and four-time Finals MVP and champion, had retired, and Cheryl Swoops was sidelined after having a surgery on her ACL. It would be up to Tina Thompson and Brazilian star Jeanette Arcane to lead the Comets. They were no match at all for the 2001 Sparks, however. The Sparks were led by superstar and MVP Lisa Leslie, and a powerhouse frontcourt to complement her with Latasha Beers, who they called Tato, and Rhonda Mapp, and all-star Tamika Dixon led the backcourt. They were undefeated at home and led the league in scoring, rebounding, and assists. The Sparks swept the Comets, defeating them in the playoffs for the first time in their history. Lisa Leslie showed out, scoring 28 points and pulling down 18 rebounds. The big difference in the playoffs is mental, not physical, Lisa said when talking about the Sparks' 2001 playoff run. They were heading into the Western Conference Finals against bitter rivals in the extremely physical Sacramento Monarchs. The Sparks rolled into Arco Arena for Game 1 and played a tough, physical game. They got the edge and won 74-73. The Sparks were grateful to have Tato on their side. The series would go to LA for Games 2 and 3, with Staples Center becoming their home along with the Lakers. Before the game, the WNBA awarded Lisa with the MVP, and the Sparks looked to close out the series and to extend their 17 home game win streak. Lisa said this was the most physical game of her career. Things looked great for the Sparks. They had an 11-point lead heading into halftime, and now they just had to close it out in the second half to reach their first ever WNBA Finals. And actually, it would also be the first time the Houston Comets didn't represent the Western Conference in the finals. The Sparks were going to make history. The Monarchs were not going to go down without a fight. They came out and played so physically in the second half that they erased the deficit quickly and literally beat the heck out of the Sparks. Lisa especially was pummeled in Game 2. Lisa describes her experience in the second half beatdown as getting hit multiple times in the face and eye, resulting in a black eye and almost breaking her nose. The Sparks lost by 20 points. The end score 80-60. Olympian Yolanda Griffith showed up, leading the game in scoring with 24 points. They tied the series and forced a final Game 3. The Sparks, however, had never been hungrier for a championship. They had already paid their dues and were ready to collect. After Game 2's loss, and while she sat in the locker room all bruised up, she could only think of one thing: I am not going to be the one crying tomorrow. Lisa dug deep, and Coach Cooper took her aside and told her, "Smooth, I need for you to show up. We need to see the MVP in this one." The Sparks jumped out early and would control the entire game. Lisa played otherworldly, solidifying her as the best player in the world. And the Sparks dominated the paint all night. The Sparks clinched the series, winning by a decisive 31 points. Lisa scored 35 points, grabbed 16 rebounds, and recorded 7 blocks. The Sparks were going to play against the Charlotte Sting for the 2001 WNBA Finals. The Charlotte Sting opened up the 2001 season going 1-10. Their road to the finals was not an easy one. Their final record for the season was 18-14, the worst record by a team to make the playoffs in the WNBA in 2001. They had to beat the number 1 seed Cleveland Rockers in the first round, and then defeat the New York Liberty in the conference finals. New York had a lot of praise for the 4-seed Sting after being defeated in the conference finals. Coach Rigi Adubato said, "They have some great players who can create their own shots. They have a strong inside game and play great defense." They definitely had a chip on their shoulders, and since making it so far, they were ready to take it all the way. They were also led by Dawn Staley, the ultimate team captain. Lisa said that when Dawn was on your team, you always wanted to perform your best. Dawn Staley collected many accolades. She was a 3-time Kodak All-America selection, 2-time National Player of the Year, and 3-time gold medalist. And this is just a glimpse into what her basketball career looked like. She was a winner and a fierce competitor. Lisa said every time the Sparks played against a Dawn Staley-led team, they would always catch up with each other during pregame. This was the finals, though, and they were on opposing sides. Only one would walk away with the chip. There were no words. Buzz City showed out for Game 1 of the 2001 WNBA Finals to support their Cinderella Charlotte Sting team, led by the fearless Dawn Staley. She excelled this year doing what she does best, galvanizing and directing the team on the court, as well as leading the team in assists and steals. They came into Game 1 still having something to prove, but their confidence and swagger was at an all-time high, and center Summer Erb came off the bench and was leading the team in playoff scoring, with 19.2 points and 9.6 rebounds per game. They were all stepping up. The Sparks, though, had confidence and swagger themselves, being the number 1 team in the WNBA playoffs, and they weren't going to be caught sleeping. The game was tight through the first half. With just seconds to go, the score was 36-35 for the Sting. Andrea Stinson, the Sting's regular season leading scorer, drove to the basket and floated a jumper. Stinson missed it but grabbed her own rebound, and before the buzzer sounded, she launched a 3-pointer. Swish. She nailed the buzzer-beating 3-pointer to put the Sting up 39-35 at the half. The Charlotte Coliseum erupted, and the number 1 seeded Sparks headed back into the locker room to figure out how to win the game. Coach Cooper didn't bother with a riveting speech, but instead reminded them of their desire to be champions and do what it takes to overcome adversity. The team regrouped and headed out for the second half. The Sting came out aggressive and pushed the pace, playing tough defense and converting on possessions. They had enough comebacks and won enough upsets this year in the playoffs. It was their turn to bring it. Stinson brought it, and the team followed suit. Forward Allison Feaster hit 3 shots in a row, capped by a Stinson layup. The Sting went on a 14-4 run out of the half. The score was 50-39 with 16 minutes to play. It seemed as if the Sparks finally started to come to. They needed to light the fuse. All-stars Tamika Dixon and Lisa Leslie led the Sparks on an 18-8 run. The deficit was cut in half. The score was now 58-57, with 8 minutes, 35 seconds left on the clock. The Sting had to think of something. Out of a timeout, Dawn Staley got a good look from deep and hit a 3. But after that, the Sting didn't score for a while. Over 7 minutes, in fact. The Sparks forced turnovers and bad shots. They brought that champion's mentality out of halftime. Leslie leading the way with Dixon, Milton, and Yukari Figs. They erased an 11-point deficit, and the Sting finally scored a basket with 1:09 to go in the game. Too little, too late for the Sting. The game ended with a 75-66 final score for the Sparks. We didn't make good defensive decisions until the second half, and I think it's fortunate that we won because we waited so late to become aggressive, Leslie said after the game. We were just trying to get the score back even, and once we did, we were like sharks. We can't go into droughts against LA, Charlotte coach Ann Donovan said. You can't not score for 7 minutes and survive. During Coach Cooper's press conference, he said, champions find a way to win. If I had to say anything to them, that was it. I can say all I want, but it's up to them to get it done. At winning time, they decided they wanted to get it done. The finals were going to LA to finish out the best-of-3 game series. The Sting, however, were used to adversity. We've had our backs against the wall before, said Andrea Stinson, who led Charlotte with 18 points. We have to go in composed, ready to play, and ready to battle. The Stars were out at Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles. This was the first ever WNBA Finals in LA for the Sparks, just months after the Lakers beat the 76ers to become repeat champions. WNBA MVP Lisa Leslie led her team out, and they dominated. They were down 10-13 at the beginning of the game, but then went on a 22-6 run and outscored the Sting 35-17 to close out the first half. The Sting fought hard and believed in themselves until the end, but Leslie proved to be the best player and couldn't be stopped. She finished with 24 points and 13 rebounds. The Sparks were WNBA champions, the first ever team besides the Houston Comets to win a championship. Leslie recorded her 6th double-double of the 7 playoff games the Sparks played, and was the unanimous Finals MVP. She became the first WNBA player to take all the trophies home in 1 year: All-Star MVP, regular season MVP, and Finals MVP. She's such a dominant player and has been for years, Charlotte coach Ann Donovan said. But what she established this year, more than any other year, is her mental game and how confident she was. She could not get distracted. Watching the Lakers win has been a huge motivation for us, Leslie said. We'll talk about a repeat soon, but right now we're going to enjoy this victory. Lisa explains how bad she felt, however, after winning, when she thought she should have been feeling like she was on top of the world. She met up on the court after the game with her friend. They embraced each other, and Lisa started to get choked up. I haven't cried in 10 years. And now you've got me going, Dawn told her. The feelings ran so deep with the two of them. It was so difficult because they were used to winning together. Staley walked off the court and Lisa stayed on and tried to celebrate with the fans and her team. She eventually got so caught up in the moment that she jumped up on the scorer's table and started throwing t-shirts out to the crowd. Smooth, that's just gonna happen in a game. That's nothing you can plan, but it's something that's going to happen. Coach Coop told Lisa about the inevitable dunk. Throughout the offseason following the 2001 finals, Lisa put in a lot of work to get better. Specifically, her ball handling skills, passing, and her hook shot. Her trainer suggested she try to implement dunking into her in-game skill set. She wrote it down as a goal to achieve, as she usually did. Lisa was already killing it in the 2002 season, and the Sparks were 15-3 by the All-Star break. She won her 3rd All-Star MVP and became the first WNBA player ever to score 3,000 points. The Sparks were hosting the Miami Soul, and they were losing 36-25. Lisa was frustrated because 1, she thought she was playing terrible defense so far in the game, and 2, the Soul were an expansion team for crying out loud. With 4 minutes 44 seconds to go in the half, Betty Lennox of the Soul shot from downtown to extend the lead, but missed it and Tato grabbed the rebound. Lisa started sprinting down court and put some distance between herself and the trailing Soul defenders, and Tato flung it down to her. I was sitting on the bench and I said to myself, "This is it," Coop said. Lisa caught the ball, took 2 dribbles, gather step, pivot, slam, dunk. Toward the end of her career during an interview, she said what was going on in her mind during that moment. "I really wanted to just dunk the ball because I was mad, and I wanted to really inspire my teammates." It's no longer part of the conversation to say that women can't do that. And so in some ways, it disarms some of those critics. Ruth Riley, a player for the Miami Soul, said, "I think that it's one of those barrier-breaking moments." Once a team tasted success, it either got hungrier or lazier. In 2002, the Sparks developed a serious appetite. The Sparks general manager traded starting point guard Yukari Figs to the Portland Fire for Nikki Teasley, the Fire's draft pick that year, in a shocking preseason move. The trade paid off, however, as the Sparks remained strong and competitive as they looked to defend their title. The Sparks opened up their playoff run against a young Seattle Storm team featuring Lauren Jackson and rookie Sue Bird. They made quick work and swept them to move on to the next round against the Utah Stars, whom they also swept. This set up a final showdown destined to transpire since that first inaugural night in 1997 at the Forum, the Sparks versus the Liberty. Lisa talked about preparing for the finals versus New York and their leader, Teresa Weatherspoon, who was the heart and soul of that team. Coach Cooper would always tell us that a team can ride on emotion only for so long, and then winning comes down to talent and intelligence, Leslie said. In Game 1 of the 2002 WNBA Finals, the Liberty hosted the Sparks at the Mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden. The Sparks would have to go without All-Star Tamika Dixon, who slipped off the steps of the team bus while arriving at the Garden for shoot-around. Some say she had injured her ankle, and others say it was her knee and lower back. It had been raining, and for some reason, security would not let the bus drive in. So they had to all get out in the rain. The Sparks team was designed, however, to have starters backing up starters. They were so deep that they still felt confident going in and stealing Game 1 in New York. Latasha Beers, Tato, filled in for her. "I think we had a philosophy that started about 3 years ago that championships are won on the road," Leslie said. "We feel like we have to make the road our home." Lisa matched up with Tari Phillips, New York's powerhouse center. She controlled the boards, was an excellent scorer, and played with an edge. Lisa was going to have to match the physicality in order for the Sparks to win. She said she was prepared for the challenge. She rolled up her sleeves and leveled up her intensity. The Sparks came out and followed the plan. They played a more physical game and collapsed inside. They crashed the offensive boards and completed a 13-4 run after being down by 9 points to tie the game at halftime. But coming out of the half, the Sparks took the lead for good. This was a true team effort. Tato pulled down 11 rebounds, Delisha Milton scored 17 points, and Mwadi Mabika led the Sparks with 20 points. Rookie Nikki Teasley set a WNBA Finals record, dishing out 11 dimes. Lisa played a solid game, scoring 15 points and grabbing 9 rebounds. The game ended with the score 71-63. New York, however, had lost every game won this playoffs, so they had the blueprint on what to do to come back and take the series. The Sparks, however, had different plans. The Sparks hadn't lost in the playoffs this year, sweeping both of their opponents leading into the finals. The series was headed back to LA for the final 2 games of the series. They came out firing, sprinting toward that second title. The score quickly became 18-4 for the reigning champions. Tamika Whitmore and Vicki Johnson, however, held steady, and the Liberty crawled out of the 14-point hole they were in and came within 6 at halftime. "I am sick of coming up short," the Liberty's forward Whitmore said. The Liberty had already lost 3 final series before. Coming out of halftime, the Sparks took back control, and with under 3 minutes to go in the game, they led the Liberty 66-57. The Sparks were heading toward becoming repeat champions, and the fans in LA started to revel in the moment. But the Liberty weren't done yet. They caught the Sparks sleeping, and before anyone could know what was going on, the Liberty's Vicki Johnson hit a 3-pointer, Becky Hammond hit a 2-point jumper, Teresa Weatherspoon sank 2 free throws, and Tari Phillips hit the game-tying jumper with 18 seconds to go, completing a 9-0 run. Coach Cooper called a timeout. Staples Center was shocked, and panic started to rise from the crowd. Coach drew up a play for Lisa to take the game-winning shot. Teasley was going to dribble to the wing and lob the ball to her. She'd make a move and find an opening. The Sparks inbounded the ball to Teasley, and the clock started to tick down. She followed the play, and Lisa dropped down to the block and called for the ball. She was ready for this moment ever since her junior year in high school. Suddenly, the Liberty's Weatherspoon dropped down to double team her, and Teasley could not get the ball to Lisa as the play broke down. She picked up her dribble and couldn't find an open player. The clock was winding down. 6, 5, 4. Teasley looked to the basket and heaved a desperation shot behind the 3-point line. That orange and oatmeal, slick ball swished through the net with 2.4 seconds left on the clock. The Liberty didn't have much time and were out of timeouts. Teresa Weatherspoon caught the inbounds pass, rushed to about half court, and heaved up a buzzer-beating shot. The shot was blocked, and the Sparks were back-to-back champions, with Lisa Leslie becoming back-to-back Finals MVP. "It's a dream come true," Teasley said. "As a player, you always dream about hitting the big shot to win the game." Lisa talks about when you become a champion, the desire and hunger to win more and achieve more success grows. It's insatiable. Soon after winning the finals in September 2002, she joined the USA squad for the World Championships in China. She teamed up with her friend Dawn Staley in this one. The US women's team won gold against Russia in the final, going 9-0 for the tournament. Lisa was named the tournament's MVP and broke Team USA's records for games played, points scored, and rebounds in championship play. A couple of months later, she was named 2002 USA Basketball Female Athlete of the Year, her 3rd time winning the award. The Sparks were killing it. They all trusted each other. Lisa was in the prime of her career, and Coach Cooper and his staff were well trusted by the team. They were going to ride this momentum into a three-peat. The start of the 2003 season through the All-Star break didn't go as the Sparks hoped, however. During the All-Star game at Madison Square Garden, sophomore Swin Cash from the Detroit Shock drove to the basket toward the heavily guarded paint, featuring Lisa Leslie and Lauren Jackson. Jackson rose up to swat the shot, and Cash's trajectory was redirected slightly, and she was forced to land on Lisa's knee. Lisa fell to the floor in writhing pain and was helped to the locker room. Her career seemed to be in jeopardy. Luckily, an MRI showed it was not as bad as it could have been, and it turned out it was just a bruised bone. The Sparks finished the season on top of the West with a 24-10 record. The Sparks had lost 2 key players in 2003, Latasha Beers and Rhonda Mapp. Tato was wrongfully accused, and it was later settled as a wrongful termination by the Sparks in 2006. And Mapp was dismissed by the WNBA for violating the league's anti-drug policy. Even with all the turmoil and adversity the Sparks faced that year, they were able to roll past the Minnesota Lynx and the Sacramento Monarchs to reach their 3rd finals in a row. Their opponent was a new face around championship play, but they wouldn't remain one for long. A term was coined for the 2003 Detroit Shock: worst to first. They went a league worst 9-23 in 2002, but this year, they compiled a league best 25-9. Champions find a way. Game 1 was in LA for a change. The Shock had a 1-game advantage in the regular season to give them home court, and came and conquered for their home fans in Game 1. They opened the game with a 25-4 tear, Lisa scoring 14 points in the first half. The story was not much different in the second half. Lisa cooked center Ruth Riley in the Shock. The Shock finished the game shooting 29% from the field, with Lisa scoring 23 points and adding 12 rebounds. Lisa Leslie and the Sparks were 1 win away from that coveted three-peat. But they would have to win it this year on the road, in Detroit. In Game 2, the game was held pretty close until about halfway through the first half. Then Detroit just started hitting everything, and the Sparks had trouble getting the ball in the basket. They held Lisa to just 2 points in the first half, and the Sparks trailed by 16 points going into the locker room. Lisa led the Sparks to an epic second half. She took that 2-point first half personally and put on a clinic, scoring 16 points in the second. She hit a mid-range jump shot to put the Sparks ahead, 61-57 with 1 minute, 28 seconds to go in the game. They were so close they could taste the three-peat. The Shock were in full panic mode after blowing a 19-point lead. Ruth Riley, dominated by Lisa Leslie in Game 1, had the ball 18 seconds later and passed it to Kedra Holland-Korn for a 3. Swish. 61-60 for the Sparks, with 1 minute, 10 seconds to go. The ball went back and forth with no team able to convert a basket. Swin Cash got the ball for the Shock and went up for a close-range shot. Lisa elevated and blocked the shot with 21 seconds left on the clock. Deanna Nolan got the offensive rebound and was fouled by Tamika Dixon. She walked up to the free throw line and knocked down both shots to take the lead with 12 seconds to go. Timeout, Los Angeles. They inbounded the ball, and Delisha Milton fired up a shot for the win, but it bounced out. Lisa got the rebound, but it was too late. The clock ran out. On to Game 3 in the Palace in Auburn Hills, to a sold-out 22,076 fans ready to watch the finale of the 7th ever WNBA Finals. The Sparks and the Shock kept the game close the whole contest, except for one time in the first half. The Shock were up 23-9, but the Sparks kept calm and trusted themselves to stay in the game, and by halftime, they cut the deficit to 2 points. In the second half, the game remained much closer, and the Sparks took a 5-point lead after Lisa hit 2 free throws. But she wouldn't score much more for the rest of the game. She finished with a double-double, scoring only 13 points, but grabbing 11 rebounds. Her counterpart, Ruth Riley, had the game of her life. She scored 27 points and pulled down 6 rebounds. Lisa fouled out with 43 seconds left on the clock after chasing a rebound, and the score was 75-75. Lisa would have to watch from the bench. There was a great back and forth between the two teams, but at the end, with 12 seconds left, Cheryl Ford was fouled. She stood at the free throw line to get the ball. The score was 78-81 for the Shock. She sank both, and the Shock would defeat the 2-time reigning champs. Lisa Leslie wouldn't be hoisting that Finals MVP trophy at mid-court. She wrote in her book, Don't Let the Lipstick Fool You, that all she could think of now was how they were going to regroup and win it back the next year. "2004 was an Olympic year, and the women's team handled business, beating Australia again. And then going back to the WNBA, the Sparks this year had gone through some changes, with Coach Cooper leaving for an assistant coaching job in the NBA. The Sparks were then upset in the first round of the playoffs by the Sacramento Monarchs. However, Lisa made history in 2004. She became Team USA's all-time leading scorer, rebounder, and shot blocker. She won WNBA MVP, first team All-WNBA, and something she hadn't done before: Defensive Player of the Year. The next few years of Lisa's professional basketball career were challenging for her. She performed great and was the best player in the league, no doubt, but the Sparks seemed to be moving farther and farther away from competing for championships. She felt her best years were being wasted, and in 2005, with trades and team chemistry struggling, the Sparks were swept in the first round by the Monarchs. One positive for 2005, however, was that she was inducted into the USC Hall of Fame and had her jersey retired. 2006 proved to be a special year for Lisa. She joined Spartak before the WNBA season started, a team in the Russian Basketball Federation in Moscow who had a few WNBA players. Tamika Catchings and her former Sparks teammate Gordana Grubin joined her along the way. While in Russia, Lisa talked about having 4 things to work on and improve: her turnaround jump shot, field goal percentage, offensive rebounding, and free throw shooting. She won the Euro Cup championship with Spartak and was named Best Center for the league. When she came home and the season was gearing up to start, the Sparks made some moves, and the team looked a little different. Shamiqua Holtzclaw, whom they had traded for, was healthy and looking good for the upcoming season. Lisa also felt stronger and better than the previous season, and at the All-Star break, she was honored to be in the first ever WNBA All-Decade team. By then, she had also become the first WNBA player to reach 5,000 career points. On her birthday on July 7th, the Sparks revealed a huge surprise and honor before their game against the Fever. They unveiled a brand new stencil on the hardwood reading, Lisa Leslie Court, and had a representation of her signature. She said it was one of her most unforgettable and memorable birthdays ever. The 2006 playoffs for the Sparks ended pretty dismally, and some say a little unfair and controversial. The Sparks defeated the Seattle Storm and moved on to face the Monarchs for the 3rd consecutive season for the Western Conference Finals. Game 1 was madness, and Lisa had a poor shooting night, and they lost. But the Sparks felt good and were going to bring it in Game 2. But something weird happened. There was a scheduling conflict for the Staples Center. American Idol had the arena booked, and neither they nor the Sparks would change their dates. And American Idol got to keep the Staples Center, and the Sparks had to find somewhere else to play. They ended up playing somewhere in Anaheim, and they were so out of their element after hoping to play at their own arena and ended up losing big in Game 2. Despite the Sparks losing again to the Sacramento Monarchs in the Western Conference Finals, Lisa averaged 20 points per game in the season, her highest in her career, and she won her third MVP. But somehow that didn't soften the sting of their season abruptly ending in some arena in Anaheim. Lisa and her husband, Michael, wanted to start a family. In 2007, Lisa was expecting a baby girl. As they started to let people know early on, Lisa said she had excruciating pain, and at the emergency room, they told her that she had a fibroid tumor. That meant she couldn't work out at all during her second trimester. But as time went by and things went smoothly, she was able to start working out again in the third. As they had the baby, Lisa said that she was excited to get back on the court again, but the Sparks looked different again. A constant shuffle seemed to be always happening in LA. Coach Cooper was back, and Shamiqua Holtzclaw suddenly announced her retirement. While on her maternity leave, she attended many Sparks games, sitting near the scorer's table with her baby Lauren. She said she wasn't sure at times if she even wanted to continue playing basketball. But it seemed the more she watched, the more her desire to play grew. And she realized how much she had left in her to still play. Late in the 2007 season, she was cleared to start practicing and dove right in. She couldn't go long at first, but kept working and would show out in 2008. Lisa really worried if she could ever get back to her old self. There was so much recovering to do, and it was a really long and tough road to get back. As she really put in the work and grinded away, she said that she started seeing glimmers of the former MVP, champion, and Olympian again. Coach Cooper and the Sparks staff did a really great job at encouraging and working with her. Midway through the 2008 season, Lisa headed with Team USA to the Beijing Olympics. She was committed to coming home with her fourth gold medal. She said that while on the plane, she visualized so vividly the moment when she hung that fourth gold medal around her neck with the other three holding her baby Lauren. If Lisa Leslie was on your Olympic team, you were going to win gold. And that's what the US team did in Beijing. She would average 10 points, 7 rebounds, and lead the team in blocks per game. The Sparks posted a league worst 10-24 for the 2007 season, and they were able to secure the number 1 pick in the draft. After declaring for the WNBA draft this year, coming off back-to-back NCAA titles, was generational talent Candace Parker from Tennessee. The Sparks got to the playoffs as a 3 seed in the Western Conference. They beat Seattle once again, but lost to the San Antonio Silver Stars in the Western Conference Finals. Lisa had an amazing comeback year, however, winning her second Defensive Player of the Year award and being on First Team All-WNBA and First Team All-Defense. She led the league in blocks, defensive win shares, and had the highest defensive rating. During her final year as a professional basketball player, she led the Sparks in field goal percentage and scoring, and was on the All-Star team. She was second team All-WNBA and second team All-Defense. The Sparks again took out the Seattle Storm in the playoffs, but lost to the eventual champs, the Phoenix Mercury, in a hard-fought series. On February 4th, 2009, Lisa Leslie officially announced her retirement. In an interview with Jackie Leiden, she said of her retirement, "I feel really great about my decision because I feel that I've given the basketball world everything. I've played it with no regret. I tried to be the most versatile player. I can still block shots, I can still play defense, and I can still score. And I just don't want to be out there when I'm not able to do that and contribute to my team in an effective way." Lisa Leslie solidified herself as one of the greatest basketball players ever to step onto the court. She's a 3-time WNBA MVP, 2-time WNBA champion, and 2-time Finals MVP, 4-time gold medalist, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time All-Star MVP, 8-time First Team All-WNBA, and 3-time All-Defense. She was the first WNBA player to reach 6,000 points. At the time of this recording, Lisa Leslie is 2nd all-time in blocks with 822 in the regular season, 6th all-time in rebounds with 3,307, 12th all-time in scoring with 6,263 points, 1st all-time in blocks in the playoffs with 132, 7th all-time in playoff points with 908. Her career averages are 17.3 points per game, 9.1 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks. She was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2015, and she said of her illustrious career, "I didn't get here alone." Thank you for listening to this episode of Fire and White. When you think of the WNBA and women's basketball excellence, it is impossible to not think of the great Lisa Leslie. Hopefully we'll see you back here soon.